Okay, excellent. Well, welcome everyone to DC Buzz, live from the Hive Audio Series. My name is Andrew Raut. I'm the course director for Introduction to Post-Production, and I have with me tonight as my co-host,
Alan Harris. I'm your lab specialist for Intro to Post, as well as Project and Portfolio One. Great to see you all.
And behind the camera, we'll give all the credits. Behind the camera, we have Mr. Randy Baker, who is the course director for composition and visual design.
We also have working the board, Mr. Michael Handley, who is working our audio board and our switcher.
And we also have
Jessica.
All right. All right. Welcome, everyone. What are we going to talk about tonight in our audio series? Well, our last installment, it was fun with shotgun mics and boom poles and stuff. So that was really cool. But tonight we're starting a new two-part series on how to improve your production audio using wireless. So we're going to be introducing tonight some entry-level wireless for those of you who are on a budget or are looking to make an investment in wireless. So we're going to introduce a couple products. We're going to talk about the pros and cons. We're also going to be doing some listening because, as you know from the last installment, it's really important that you hear these microphones. You can see them all day long on boom poles, and you can see us, wiring up talent and all that kind of good stuff. But in the end, it's really important that you hear these systems. So we're gonna talk about the pros and cons of them, and then, like I said, we're going to follow up with some listening. So the two systems we're going to talk about tonight is the Rode Go Pro, not a GoPro, but the Rode Go Pro version. And that would be this system right here, very, very small and compact. And we've seen these systems, increasingly, more and more with YouTube videos and other small films. Then we're going to step into the kind of the next level up, an intermediate level with the Sony systems, and also another very popular line we see a lot is the Sennheiser G4 series, or you might come across the G3, which is the precursor to the G4. So for the longest time, we were using wireless systems that were single channel, one channel, which would include a transmitter, which we plugged in our lavalier wire mic, and the receiver, which we either put on the camera or we attached to our field mixer if we were the sound mixer, E&G, sound mixer or what have you. But now, as equipment is getting smaller and smaller, and the demands of needing to wire up, multiple talent, instead of having multiple receivers hanging off your camera or weighing down your bag, manufacturers have started to consolidate two channels of wireless into one receiver. So that's a pretty cool development. That's been in the works for
that's
at least
the last, I want to say, maybe a little more than 5 years that's been becoming. And now, honestly, they're even getting even more crammed into one device for a lot more pro gear.
Yeah.
Again, that's just because it's becoming cheaper to build these parts, and also their parts are just becoming smaller in nature.
Yeah, absolutely. And I can assure you that from back in the day when we had these big honking receivers in our bags, those field bags got heavy and heavy. Now, it's not uncommon for a dual channel receiver in our bags to be this big or even smaller. So that's very, very exciting. So we wanted to start with the Rode Go Pro version. So I'm going to let Alan introduce that and talk about the pros and cons to this particular entry-level system.
Yeah, so there's the Pro version is actually one of these systems we were just talking about. You have 2 transmitters, which we have right here, and you have 1 receiver, which is the same exact size of this box. You also have the the wireless Rode Go, which is a single system. So you have 1 box, which is the transmitter, 1 box is the receiver. The difference between these are exactly the same. It's just a tiny little bit cheaper. And if you don't need that extra channel, why pay for it? So those are the differences between the two. The major difference of to why these are kind of on that cheaper level is going to be how it wirelessly sends from transmitter to receiver. And that's going to be on what's called 2.4 gigahertz, or what I like to call Wi-Fi band. This is going to be what any basic Wi-Fi is on, 2.4 or 5 gigahertz. It's a really quality. You get a lot of information sent quickly with Wi-Fi, but the problem with it is range. Once you start getting out of range, especially line of sight, or even more than I'd say 5 to 6 feet away, you're going to start breaking up, which again is going to be one of those cons. One of the pros, though, is number 1, the size. This thing is just so small compared to what we used to have to work with. And also just the nature of it. It's very close to almost plug and play. You turn it on, it usually is already synced. To sync it are these little buttons on the bottom where it just tries to detect each one, and then it pairs up with itself. So it's really, really easy for a lot of you guys who are kind of doing this as a solo one-man band, and you have a whole bunch of things to worry about at once. So that is definitely a pro of it. But again, one of the downsides of it is the reliability. So yes, you can set it really quickly, but you might be setting it a lot because you might be running into some problems, especially if you're in a really noisy environment with a lot of people around, or maybe an apartment complex, anything like that.
Regarding the Wi-Fi aspect of it, what happens when there are a lot of people, maybe either on your set or in your vicinity, that are active on the Wi-Fi? What is the traffic? How does the traffic impact the system?
Yeah, so what's going to happen is the system is going to start detecting that traffic is around, and it's going to try to correct itself. So one of the big problems is if it does try to correct itself, there's a couple millisecond kind of delay or a kind of cutout between when it's doing a new pair, which is going to result in a full-on dropout. So if you're in the middle of the take, that might be a problem for you. If it's kind of happening in between breaths or in between speaking, you might get lucky. But when we're on a real pro set, you can't rely on that luck. Another thing it might do is if it's not fully stepping on you, it's just causing a little bit of interference. It's going to sound like your voice is kind of modulating. You're still going to be able to hear it, but it's going to really affect the quality of the voice, and it's going to start to make it sound either robotic or just not realistic at all, even almost like AI voice. So that's going to be one of the major downsides of a system like this.
They're so small. And these larger units systems require batteries to power it. How does this Rode system how is it powered and charged up? Obviously, we can't put a AA battery in there.
Exactly, which again is one of those things. If you're doing a lot of quick shoots, the benefit of that is you don't have to think about it. So it actually charges through this Type-C port, which you can plug into the case or with a cable. Of course, then the case also has a Type-C charger in the back. It has a little bit of a charge always in the case. So if you do need to go and give it a quick power up, that's a good feature. But if you are doing a day that might be more than 4 or 5 hours, you either have to have a second system or you need to wait for it to charge.
Yeah.
The benefits of systems like this is once that battery is dead, just swap it out with a new battery. You can have plenty of batteries on set. But if you want to have that reliability, you might either be waiting or you might need to have 2 of these systems because you can't swap it out. It's all internal battery.
Well, that's cool. So there are a number of other systems. DJI has a wireless entry-level wireless system as well. And we're going to be seeing a lot more of these systems. Now, moving on, as we step up our game, we can move into this kind of maybe intermediate area of systems, and this is the Sony system. And what you see here on this receiver, for instance, there are two antennas, whereas we don't see antennas on this system. Now, as we move into a system like this, there are more features and more flexibility in this system. Okay, we have range for one. It does not operate on 2.6 gigahertz Wi-Fi band. It is in the UHF ultra high frequency band. So there's more range, there's more reliability. It's, all wireless is subjected to potential interference. But with this system, we can actually go in and change frequencies. The thing that I like about this particular system, and it's very cool, wireless systems typically go one direction. They have a transmitter, which we plug the wireless or the lav mic in, also known as a wire. We're going to be talking about this later. Actually, we're going to do some basic wiring, but we plug this into the transmitter. But also, sometimes we need to go the opposite direction in the form of like an IFB or a monitor system. So this Sony system allows you to go in both directions. So that's very, very exciting, very, very flexible. Now, when it comes to tuning, we didn't talk about the tuning on the Raut. Just like any wireless system where you have a transmitter and a receiver, just like our TV, for instance, back in the day, if NBC was broadcasting and ABC and CBS, all the networks, if you wanted to watch NBC, you had to tune your TV to that channel. Okay, great. We have a number of ways we can tune, and we can tune our systems so they can talk to each other. What is interesting about the Raut is that it will do its own self-sync. What it does is the receiver will do what's called a scan. You put it in scan mode, it scans all available frequencies, and especially ones that don't have a lot of traffic on it, and it will pick the most usable frequency. And then you take your your transmitter, and you pair it, or you sync it, or you manually tune the frequency of your transmitter to your receiver. Very, very cool. This will do it on startup. Okay, you don't have to worry about it. But what was the function you were talking about where it will look for different available frequencies? If there's a lot of traffic, it will go in and search for a new frequency and then do an auto pair. Is that correct? How that works?
Yes, which can be very useful, but also interfere. Like I said, if you're in the middle of an important take, especially maybe an emotional story like a mini doc, and that's when we need to hear what that character has been through, and it decides to do it then, that can be a pretty big detriment to your efforts to capture that amazing story.
Yeah, and these other systems here, you can manually set the frequency, or you can do that scan and then sync. This Sennheiser system has a very unique way of doing it. Once you do the scan on the receiver, what you do is there are infrared here.
Yep, right here.
Okay, box. And all you do, you put it in sync mode and you stick them both together like that. And in a few seconds, the transmitter and receiver will be paired. Me personally, I like to just manually tune it. Now on more expensive pro systems like the Electrosonics, we can go in and do a scan. We have a skyline, display where we can see the traffic, and then we go in and manually set the frequencies. So that's my preferred method. Is there anything else you want to add to this before we get to some wiring and listening?
Yeah, so I think the biggest takeaway is we talk about how these systems graduate to the next step. And as we said, the functionality you're going to get for going to that next step are going to be things that are going to make your life easier by being quicker and giving you more information. So it's not necessarily, unless you're getting, there's definitely packs, more expensive packs are better at rejecting RF or radio frequencies you don't want. So that's always going to be a benefit. But honestly, down the line, just the pure audio you're getting from the packs aren't really going to change. But the functionality and, like I said, the rejecting of everything you don't want is going to be why you're paying the top dollar for it.
Yeah, and the reliability of the systems and how solid your reception is from what we call the line of sight. If there are any obstructions between the receiver and the transmitter in entry-level systems, those obstructions or walls can make it very, very difficult. If you are set up in one particular area and your shoot is, in another part of a building or house or outside, the more expensive units they're a lot more stable. They have more power in their transmitters. They have longer range. They have the strength of stronger signals. So there are a lot of reasons to up your game as the more work you do to upgrade your wireless. And so it's very important. But we were talking about improving your production audio with wireless. Last installment, we talked about booms, and we're going to do some comparison between booms and lofts so you can really hear the difference. The reason we want to get into wireless or have some kind of wireless capability is because there are going to be moments when your shot is too wide and you can't get a boom in the shot, without it being seen, or your blocking is such where if you have to have a boom op running around with your talent and following, talent through crazy, paths and stuff, we will put a lav on to make those moments easier to where we can, get pretty good, solid sound.
Yeah, and that's really the key is lavs are going to be, and as we'll get into a little bit, booms are definitely my always go-to, but lavs are going to be a very good consistent. They're always going to be there. They're always going to be that level, which is very useful for those moments. We can't rely on the boom to be as consistent as we wish it would be.
Yeah. So let's do this. Let's do some listening.
Yep.
But before to get to being able to listen, let's talk about some basic wiring. Now, stay tuned for part 2 because we're gonna take a little deeper dive into the techniques we use with tapes and foam and all this kind of stuff to conceal lavs. Because when we're doing narrative work and even some documentary work, the producers and the directors don't want to see the mic. So that means we have to look at our wardrobe and we got to find the right place to conceal the mic. So we're gonna talk about that in part 2. But what we want to show you is just a simple, what we refer to as kind of an open air way to mount the lav mic so you get good, clean audio, because the moment you have to conceal that lav under clothing, it starts to kind of muffle the sound a little bit. So you have to find creative ways to make it happen. So let's talk about what we're kind of seeing in YouTube videos, social media influencers and stuff. And we're going to be straight up. We're going to tell you what we don't want to see and what is not correct when it comes to making narrative movies or anything really, you know. So this is the first thing what we see when we see this, and we get it. We understand that, you know, you're going to see a lot of these, but what's the best way to use these? So let's talk about that, Alan, because, you know, that's one of my big pet peeves when I see this. Okay, so check this out. You see this a lot, don't you? Okay, I'm going to say this. Lav mics should not be a distraction, okay? Your lav mic, properly placed, should not draw your eye away from here, away from the story. So how many of you are looking at me? Are you wondering, what's this bug looking, this furry bug thing on my shirt? Okay. It looks very awkward. Okay. Here's another thing we see. This. Okay. We see this a lot where the talent is holding the lav. We don't do that either. Okay. So what we suggest is, if you want to use the Raut system, great. Raut makes some amazing stuff. Raut also makes a plug-in mic for the system. Okay. Now this becomes it becomes the way we normally use it, with a body pack and wire. So now let's show you something, and then we'll get to listening. So here we go. This is an alligator clip, okay? And it's called an alligator clip because, if you can see that, it looks like an alligator. Okay? All right. So all the systems that come with wires will come with a kit of wind protection, first starting with just a simple foam windscreen, or what we call the softy. Okay. We use this when we're in more extreme windy situations. This is just your obligatory foam windscreen. Okay, so the way we mount this is, I'm going to show you the proper service looping. So when I drop it through my shirt, it looks right. Okay, so I'm going to put the microphone in the clip like so, if you can see that. Okay. Yeah, you want to take that so I can drop that. Okay, so then what we're going to do is we're going to create a service loop. We're going to put it inside. Randy, can we see that? You're going to put it inside the clip.
A little more towards your shirt.
Yeah, more towards the shirt.
So the shirt is contrast.
Like that?
No.
Like you stand in front of it.
There you go.
Use the shirt as the background.
Okay. And you can see that loop going through the alligator. And then there's another clip where we mount the cable in, like so. Okay. So it this is odd because this is a flat cable. Okay, so now we get something that looks like that. And we've seen this a million times with news anchors or talking head. Now, the next step is, you want to be the subject?
Let's do it.
Okay, so if I'm going to wire up Alan first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to look at his wardrobe. And he has a straight ahead polo. So what I'm going to do is between the first two buttons here, see that button there, we're going to drop this wire through his shirt. So if you drop that through there for me, right there. Perfect. And then drop it down there. If you can grab that and hand that to me, that'd be awesome. Perfect. So now we can see the lav and the connector. So I'm just going to now take this. Hold that for me.
Gotcha.
And we're simply going to clip it right like so. Okay, so face the camera,
There
Alan.
we go.
Can you see that? Now, I want you to tell me something, guys. Which looks more distracting? This clipping the transmitter and the furry softy, or the microphone with the foam? You have that, then you have that. What do you guys like? What looks more natural? So my opinion is that looks better because it's not a distraction to the story or the talent. Now, here's another thing we also see. Why don't you pull that wire up?
Yep.
Yep. Now, when you remove a wire, this is something we were just talking about earlier today. First off, you pull the wire off your talent. The wire does not belong to the talent. The wire belongs to you. Okay? So you always bring the wire up through the shirt, because if you pull the wire down through the shirt, you risk damaging the capsule. Okay, so this is what we see as well. Okay, ready for this one? That. Now, if Alan wasn't wearing a black shirt, we would be able to see that better. Or you know what? Here, check this out. Oop. I have a droopy mic. It'd be like this. See that? If you do one thing and you're using a clip-on, always drop it down to the shirt like so, and clip it like that. Nice and clean. Cool?
Cool.
What do you think, Alan?
I think it looks great. Ready for an interview.
Ready for an interview. Okay. So,
Oh, we can talk about how it goes on here then too.
yeah, we have what we call an air gap problem. Okay. So once you wire, once you get the talent wired with their lav, you're going to take that and you're going to put it plug it into the transmitter. And this has you can tighten down got to be careful when you tighten that down and you don't twist does this tighten? No, oh yeah, it does have threads on it. Okay. So that will tighten down to where the connector won't pull out of the transmitter. Okay. And then you can either clip it on the belt, you can put it in the pocket, but if you're going to do the pocket, always put the transmitter inside the pocket and the clip on the outside. Okay, cool. All right. So,
and then we can just show this too. We have the fuzzy on this one right here, and this is actually just a little twist off, and that's of course just like the other one, just like that. And that just has a little bit of a metal piece on there. So that's going to be your connector right on this side.
Awesome. So what are we going to do now, Alan? What do you want to do? You want to do some listening?
Let's do some listening.
Let's do some listening. Okay, so let's plug in our Sony.
Yep.
Okay. So now we are going to we're going to listen. We're going to do a listening exercise between the Sony and the Sony microphone that comes with the system. And we will also be listening to the Rode system along with its plug-in mic. We're going to do the fuzzy versus the.
Going to do the two goes first.
Yeah, let's
Cool.
do the two goes first. Okay, so we're going to put this fuzzy now. In order to do this, you put that on there. And in order to do this listening exercise right, we're going to put the lavs basically in the same place, okay? That way we can get a fairly reasonable A-B comparison. So Mike, which lav are we listening to first,
We're
Alan?
now listening to the wire.
This one right here?
That's correct.
Okay, y'all can hear it? Okay, so I'm just going to talk. We are doing a listening exercise with the Rode Go Pro, the 2-channel version, right? 2 channels. Both this transmitter and this transmitter came from the same Pro pack. So we have the 2 transmitters in the one dual, what we call a dual receiver. So we are listening to the lav, the wire, versus you want to listen to the transmitter microphone built into the transmitter. So now we're listening to this one right here. Okay, what do you guys think? Can you guys hear the difference? Anyone? And how are the comments, Jessica? You've been pretty quiet tonight.
They've been pretty quiet.
No comments?
There's been some comments, but not questions or anything.
Oh, well, okay.
Just wrote one.
There is
There-
one comment.
One
The
comment.
wireless sounds better, Christopher says.
Which sounds better?
The wireless,
You mean that one
I'm thinking that's.
with the lav mic? Christopher, are we talking about the lavalier wire? Or are we talking about the microphone that's built into the transmitter?
Dustin says the wired one sounds better. The other one, the Caterpillar box, sounds more like it's bringing in room noise.
Okay,
We did get one comment also about the fact that neither looked good because you could see the microphone.
well, neither looks good. However, okay, I'm going to take this off. To respond to that comment, the thing about this is okay because we are so used to seeing this. Okay, in this kind of context where we are, talking about gear and listening and all, or when we watch the news, we're used to seeing this. So whenever I see a mic like this, I'm okay with it. Okay, but I am not okay with something that is such a distraction. Okay, but I guess the general consensus is that the wire sounds better. Now the comment was this one was picking up more ambience, more room noise, room
We are
tone.
getting comments that the lav is definitely sounding better to the students.
I would agree with that. Now, what's really interesting, guys, is that this particular microphone in this transmitter is probably an omni. An omni pickup pattern. That means the microphone in this transmitter picks up from all around, which means it's going to pick up all sorts of reverberant ambience in the room, as well as air handlers and stuff. Now, this lav, they make different versions of this. They make an omni pickup pattern and a cardioid pickup pattern, which the cardioid tends to confine the pickup area, around here in front of the lav. Okay, it's not picking up from all around. So that's that's a very good observation. Now, Mike, while we have this going on, let's go back and do a comparison between the sound of the lav, because we all agree that this lav sounds the best over this. So now let's take this lav and compare it to a boom.
Ready to switch
Okay,
gear?
yeah, whenever you want to. So now we are listening. We're on the boom?
You're on the boom now.
Okay, we're on the boom. Okay, so right above me is a boom mic, which we learned from the last installment of all about shotgun mics and booms. So we see this boom right overhead. Okay, so just to kind of give you an idea, this boom is literally what, Alan, 2 feet, maybe 1.5 feet from me.
1.5 feet. For sure.
Okay, so what I want you to do, I want you to listen to that and listen to the quality of my voice and just the natural air that is around this signal. So now, Mike,
Ready?
let's transition between the boom and the lav.
Okay, as you speak, I will
As
do
I,
the fading out.
you'll fade out. Excellent. Okay, so Mike is fading out the boom and now fading in the lav. Okay, so now we're on the lav. So Alan, talk to me. Tell me a story. Let's converse.
So about last week, having a fun job at a convention center, dealing with a lot of the stuff we just talked about, a lot of RF interference. So
Wow.
this is, something that we deal with every day when we're both on the
RF. What was causing all that RF? Were there a lot of guys, with wireless? Was there construction? Was there just general maintenance? What was going on?
All of the above. You have the stage work, you have people with walkie-talkies because of course
Yeah.
they're staff members. You have, cars driving by, you're having just even people in the room is going to have that interference.
Oh, I hate when that happens. Okay, so
I put you back on
So
boom while you were
on-
talking, so
on
you
the
can hear
boom?
difference. Just
Okay.
to let them know.
So, guys, in the comments, what did you like better, the lav or the boom? The lav mic. Did you like the lav mic, the Rode, the lav that's plugged into the Rode? What is it?
GoPro.
GoPro. The GoPro. I want to say GoPro,
Yep.
but I know I have to say GoPro. Okay. Or did you like the mic? The boom mic. Or combinate, bring them both up. Ooh, bring them both up.
Ooh.
Ooh, okay, now we're bringing both up.
And why would you use both?
Now,
Both
Randy,
active.
I was just about to get to, man, you're stealing my thunder. Okay, so Mr. Baker asked a very, very good question. Why would we use both? Well, gee, you want to answer that question?
So having both mics on set is again giving you that variety. I think every sound mixer is going to have their preference, because of course they do. My personal is always going to be the boom microphone. I think in every circumstance, it's always going to sound better. In certain environment, it's not. But having that variety of talking about when the boom isn't playable, when the talent is maybe moving frantically, is why you have both. And you usually record them separately. So you have your boom being recorded on a track and you have your lavs being recorded on a separate track.
That's a very important point. Guys, what we're talking about here is really, to answer that question, we want the option of a lav or boom in post-production. Okay, so we always start with the boom because it's the most natural sounding. It sounds natural and it's in the environment that the scene is happening in. But there are times where we might not be able to boom, or if it's a single boom, guys, and we're doing a narrative thing, the boom op has to know the script. Did you realize that? Because if you have a single boom, and let's say Mr. Baker is back there booming Alan and I having our conversation, and I'm talking, he needs to put the position the boom on me. But as soon as Alan starts talking,
I'm going
he
to take
has,
over. Now, if the boom's pointing in his direction, we're going to miss that. So now we would have to switch the boom back over to me and vice versa.
so now in post, if we're trying to mix that and we can't go back and fix that, then we have the lav backup that we can bring in to salvage a scene.
Yep.
So that's very, very important. But the fact of the matter is you cannot mix a lav and a boom together on the same track. And one last thing on that, if you were to mix the boom and the lav together on one track, you end up getting a weird phasing issue because there's a time difference between when this lav picks up my voice, which is like maybe 6 inches away, and the boom, the capsule of the boom is fairly high. That's almost 2.5 feet. So when you figure the time delay between this mic and the boom mic, it's going to do some crazy things, okay, when you stick those together. Now, when in post, we never bring them up to the same level. We typically favor one over the other, given what we have to, how we have to mix it. Okay, so that's why we want both of those signals.
Professor Raut,
Yes.
I was having to favor the boom being the stronger over the lav.
Oh, you did?
Doing this, I had to ride the levels so that the lav was actually lower than the boom to get the even balance between the two.
So it sounded good.
Yeah.
Okay, there you have it.
Somebody did notice the phasing when we had both of them on. I currently got you on boom right now.
Okay.
And that phasing is it's a thing you definitely learn and you can pick up right away. But it's one of those things that you hear it and if you don't know what this is, it just sounds bad. And that's going to be the general consensus. Like, we don't know why, it just sounds bad.
Yeah, and it's like anything in filmmaking. Mr. Baker and I were having a conversation today about looking at images and when you learn how to see something, it could be as simple as squaring up your camera and making sure all the lines, the image doesn't look tilted. The moment you train your eye to see that, you see it and you can fix it. This is no different. When you hear it and you know what's happening, you can work with it. It's one of those things you have to train your ear to hear.
You also have some physical acoustic differences here. This is more presence, that's more chest cavity resonance.
Oh yeah. That's one thing we didn't, talk about. The fact that this lav is so close to my chest cavity is going to make it sound a little different. Also, it's been described that lavs tend to sound clinical because they're so close, and because they're so close, they don't have a natural sound of the room. So when we are mixing it in post, we have to tend to put maybe a little more ambience around it to blend it with the sound of the lav. And that's an important thing to remember as well.
That's an amazing.
Oh my gosh, the timing of that. Oh my gosh, I couldn't have planned that any better. And Mike didn't even have to hit the applause button.
I don't even know which one's the applause button on this piece. This is not my duo.
You need to up your game on the wah, 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 and the applause and all of that. The next time we do.
I was told not to use it. I asked Alan.
I said no, there is no fun here. That is my role.
We're not allowed to have fun. I don't think we can be friends anymore.
Okay, I understand.
You want to do the difference between that mic, lav, and that?
Oh
mic,
yes, we did not. So
let's
you know what,
preload
Alan?
it a little bit.
That is great.
We had a little bit of a discussion talking about how the different systems are going to be not that noticeable, but there is something that's going to be noticeable, and that's going to be the actual wire you are using, the
Oh.
actual microphone.
Okay, so when you buy a system, with the exception of the Go Pro, because it has a built-in,
Do a little twist. There you go.
oh, there we go, a built-in microphone. These systems do not. This transmitter does not have. So it usually comes with a stock lav. Okay, so give me that. So what we're going to do is Alan is going to talk, and we're going to listen to the difference between the stock mic that comes with the Sony. Okay, you want to take that? You want to plug this one in?
Yep.
And what are you swapping out?
Yep, quick swap.
Okay, Alan's going to do a quick swap of our receivers because we only have 4 inputs on our mixer. So we're going to do this little listening experiment or test, and we're going to listen to the lav in an open air context where it's not covered with any kind of, a shirt. Like if I were to have to conceal the mic underneath my collar here. So open air. So are we good? Alan, you want to?
You are on the wirelesses now.
We are? Okay, so now instead of doing a test between the lav and the boom, now we're going to do a listening test between the actual lav capsules, because lav capsules are not equal. Okay, there's a reason why a Sanken COS 11 costs $400 and the top of the line Raut wire is maybe 185, or a Countryman B3 is, I think, 185
Yep.
as well. There are other lav mic manufacturers that you could take this Raut transmitter, or even the Sony, and put a different wire on. But we're going to just test the stock. So I'm going to just hang that there for the moment. So Alan, tell me a story.
So let's talk about what I hope to do over the weekend.
What do you hope to do over the weekend?
So I am hoping to play a little bit more of the Elden Ring DLC. I know you know nothing about that.
I absolutely nothing. So why don't you educate me?
So it's an amazing game. George R.R. Martin did a lot of the writing, the writer of Game of Thrones. And of course, it's still a video game. It's not just a book. So it has a really fun story. And by that, I mean miserable story, because all of his writing is miserable.
So it's not very uplifting is what you're saying.
Not at all.
Now, what I want to know, is it a video game?
Yes.
Oh, man.
So I'm sorry.
You know, it's not a tabletop game?
So I'm sure there will be. So we'll just wait and play that together when it comes out eventually.
I sure hope so. Is it where we have to wear costumes like Dungeons and Dragons?
We'll talk about that later.
Okay. Does it have cool game pieces?
Yes, it will.
Nice.
Actually, I think we should stop talking so we can go and make it ourselves before anyone else thinks of this idea.
You think?
Yeah.
Can we make some money?
I'm not going to say that, but yes.
Nice.
And we'll stop recording so they can have a non-disclosure agreement set up for this thing.
Hey, it
that they're
wasn't
talking
me.
about.
It was.
But we already had somebody comment that it is fun with an exclamation point.
It's a fun game. So that's amazing for me. I don't know what I'm going to do this weekend. Probably honeydew list stuff. You know, we've all been here for the past 3 days. Well, tomorrow will be 3 days, and I think I don't know. I might just sleep.
That's a really good plan, honestly.
My kids cut the yard now, so I don't have to worry about cutting the yard. No applause. Come on. Oh, what is it? You got applause?
Got the applause.
Nice. Nice.
I love that you can tell which one of us is the adult. One talks about housework and the other one talks about video games. So
My friend, you'll get there soon enough. So,
Doctor Who and go completely childish. You got me on that one if you want a childish one.
Doctor Who,
Jessica, what would you be, adult or child?
come on, be the adult in the room, Jessica.
I could be both.
Both. Oh, that's a good mix.
Okay, you know what, Randy? For the next one, the next installment of part 2, we need to add a camera on the 2 of them. Don't you think?
Yeah.
Because I think right now there's way too much interaction.
Why do you think I left my FX3 in the car?
I'll wear a
Oh, come
plastic.
on.
Okay, we got.
Let's
off
have
track a
some
little
fun.
bit.
But you know what? We're just having fun. We're talking. We're dialoguing. We're conversing. So we can test these lofts. Now, everyone, we probably won't even talk to each other after this. This is, we're
Mortal enemies.
no, we're not mortal enemies. Well, why don't we get our boom poles out?
Oh my god.
Here,
And,
hang on
you
one
know,
second.
what?
Just make sure to point, who's on which one again, tell them directly to the
I
camera.
don't,
Who's on the road?
who wired that thing?
I did.
So which input am I on?
You are no.
You're on camera, so tell them, the audience.
What? Oh, you mean what mic system I'm
Yeah,
on?
who's on
Oh,
which
I'm
one?
on the road.
And I am on the Sony.
Are
And what's the
those
price
interchangeable?
difference between those two?
Oh, let's talk price.
Are
Okay.
they interchangeable on the mics?
Yeah. I think that's a, yeah.
Well, to use this particular wired mic on the Sony, it depends. The thing about Sony systems, and this is another thing, when you go to buy a lav, let's say you wanted to step up your lav game from the stock lav, it's important that when you go to order it, you make sure the lav is designed or wired to match the system. Sony systems require a different wiring to their lav, so it will, like, I can get a Rode lav, but the higher end Rode lavs have interchangeable connectors on the end, which are wired internally in these little connectors to go into a particular system. So if I have a few of these Rode mics, I might have 3 or 4 different adapters that I'll screw on the end to properly interface with the transmitter. Others microphones might work, but all these manufacturers have different connectors and different wiring, the ways that they need to be wired. So you have to be careful when you make your order. That's a big thing. So because this particular connector here is molded, it's molded. If I were to take this off, you could see that the connector is molded to the wire. So I can't change that out. Okay, you see that? Here, hold on. Yep.
Yeah, put it against something. There you go.
See that? All right. So share a thumbs up, or however you're going to do the polling. Who likes the Sony lav?
So we're
How are we
giving
doing?
we're getting an
Okay, that's
example
the
of the
Sony lav.
This is the Sony lav right now. You can see the built-in one doesn't have any sort of foam like the other one does. They do sell attachments that give you that little bit of wind protection. So that is an option. And then we're also using the alligator clip for this. Again, there's some other options, which we'll get about later on a different episode. But yep, this is the Sony lav we're talking to right now.
And the reason we're testing it this way is the lavs are open air. There's nothing over the capsule muffling or where we have to conceal it. So we get a really good representation of what the lav sounds like. So Mike, or Jessica,
You're live on the road right now.
I am live on the road. So how many in the comments, who likes the Rode mic?
There's one, or two for the Sony and there's two for the Rode.
Okay.
So split decision.
And one likes both.
Nice.
And the
Okay.
price
Three for
difference?
Sony.
Yes.
Yes.
That's surprising, by the way.
Yeah. So the Sony system, a single channel, last time I checked was, I think over $500.
That's 600, right?
600 for one channel now, the UTX version. And then the dual channel, because Sony makes a dual channel system, just like Rode does, that's probably pushing over 1,000. You're not necessarily doubling, but it's in that ballpark. So
The Rode goes, I believe it's 350 right now, 350, 400, somewhere between there. And that's for the Pro, the dual system with the dual receiver.
okay. What do you think, Ellen? Is there anything else we want to talk about in this installment?
Going
No,
back to boom.
We're going back to boom. Okay, so one thing I want to go over is when we're done with a production, how do we wrap a lav? And we have to be very careful because these wires are very delicate and they're not designed like if we were to take a lighting cable, what do we call them, 3-phase lighting cable, which is really thick, which you really have to muscle, or on the extreme of fiber optic cable, which you have to be even more delicate with. These wires are very thin. There are some wires like the Sanken COS 11 that has a lot more robust cable. And then there are the other Rode mics, lavs have a much thinner cable, but this one is pretty interesting. I've never seen a flat cable before. That's very interesting. So like I said, see how when I drop this down through my shirt, we do not want to do this where I just put it like that and I pull it down because it could damage this capsule. So what do? We always pull the wire up through the shirt and protect the capsule, because in the event your connector got caught and it was damaged at the connector, all you have to do is send the wire back to the factory and they'll re-terminate it for you. But the moment something happens to the wire in the capsule, then you pretty much are done. So now how do we wrap this up, Alan? We're going to simply take it out. We're going to do this. Have you all heard of the over-under cable wrapping method, where when we're wrapping mic cables, or what other cables do we have that are wrapped over under?
pretty much anything that is low voltage or any sort of information being sent is what I like to do over under.
Okay. Over under is a way we wrap cable for when we lay it out, it lays out flat. It doesn't lay out like a corkscrew, when you lay it out. So how do we roll up a wire? We take it in our, like so, between our thumb and our index finger, and we use our other fingers to size the loop. So what I do is I'm going to wrap it. Now I'm going to grab it like that. And then I'm going to do the under, if you will, that will twist like that. And then we do the over, then the under, and we pull it to adjust it to the loop size of your fingers. See that? Over. And then the last one I'll normally do over, and we have something like that. And then we will take a twisty tie, and about an inch is pretty much all you need. And then you just wrap it around. And I don't twist it like that. all I'm gonna do is just keep wrapping it around like that. So it all, you're not twisting it like you would a bread bag. You're just doing something like that. Is that good, Randy? Okay. And basically an inch, inch and a half is all you're really going to need. But I try to adjust the wrap to where I can put the wrap up here. You see that? Is that all right, Randy? And the reason I try to get it like that is because watch what happens if I do the other side. The connectors in capsule hang down. So we try to just wrap it around like that. So it's all nice and tidy like that. All right, guys. That's it for part one of our basic wireless lecture.
Yep.
Well, Buzz, DC, Buzz, live from the Hive Audio Series.
QA.
So now, like we do in all our Zooms and all this kind of stuff, we're going to open it up to the floor for Q&A. So fire away. All right, Mr. Baker has a question.
What's the electrosonic system cost?
Electrosonic? Well, back in the day, if it was the 411 system, I'm just kind of gonna set the stage here. Okay. We just said that the Sony system is like $600. Well, back in the day with the 411, which by the way, I still use. And this was the 411 series it's like over 10 years old, isn't it? But just because it's old doesn't mean it stops working, and it's very solid. $5,000. Yes, you heard me say $5,000 for one channel. So now, Alan, you have some new electro gear, don't you?
Yep.
What do you have?
So we have the new, I'm not sure what the exact model is. It's the digital hybrid system. The system that I use as backup lavs are just like these, where you have a pack and a pack. So it's similar to this. And the transmitter receiver pair is somewhere between, I'd like to say 16 to 1800. So you're in at about 32 to 3,500 for a channel, and then
For one channel.
correct. And
For
then
one.
and then you could get the dual systems, which we always talk about, which are always going to be more.
Yeah, I see more and more sound mixers using the dual system, especially the ones in bags. The sound mixers who do what we call bag work. That's where they're wearing the field bag with the mixer and all the wireless receivers and stuff. That's something Alan and I both do. We've done for years. We have done work together where, like, I was the sound mixer and he was the boom op. And, sometimes we switched and, hey, you want to boom today? Yeah, I'll boom today. You want to mix today? Okay, great. But a lot of bag work is where one person is doing everything. Now, as things are getting smaller, and we're going to extreme places, the older gear weighs a ton. And when my bag was fully loaded with 3 or 4 411s plus my mixer and everything else, it wasn't out of the realm of possibility that was 30 pounds.
And
if you were to
that's
just lift it.
after 10 to 12 hours, that's a rough day.
That gets heavy. So do you have any more questions, Randy?
How do you store that? Is there a way to store the mics?
You know what, man, you were chock full of questions.
We've got a couple questions from the students also, don't forget. So yes, we're making sure we get you covered.
So this little case comes with the Pro, correct, Randy?
Right.
Yeah, so the Pro comes with the charger case, which is this little guy where all 3 of the packs sit right inside of there. And it also comes with this lav case, which has some nice things for accessories as well. And we can already see that the second wire is in there as well, and it goes in just like that. Nice and zips up. Very
Now,
cool.
so as you start to grow your rig, the number of systems, the number of lavs, and it's not uncommon for you to have different lavs for different kinds of applications. So the more lavs you get, when you buy a lav from a third party, not the actual like Sony or Rode, it comes in a box, okay? And after a while, you get a lot of boxes and it takes up a lot of space. So what I did is I got one of these handy dandy filter cases. And in each one of these filter compartments, I store my lav. Take that and I just put it right there. And this has 8 compartments. I have, here, let me move this, Randy, you can get a better shot on this. I'll pull them out and just kind of lay them on here if we can do that. All right, so you can see that the lavs I have here are terminated. When you hear the word terminate, that means that refers to the connector that's on the end of the wire, and that will determine what transmitter you can put them in. So this is pretty much what I do use. And as I was saying earlier, the higher end Rode lavs, okay, have these little adapters on the end. So if you can push in on that, Randy, see that, guys? Watch what happens. I can unscrew this connector. Okay, there you go. And in here, where are they? I have another bag of these connectors. So if I needed another connector for electro system, and I think this one is for the Sennheiser rig, so I could take that and take the Rode lav and simply screw that on the end. Be very careful that you don't cross thread it and then it gets all, you ruin it. Don't over tighten anything. So now this is the Micon 2, and I believe the Micon 2 is the adapter you need to go into. Here's the Sennheiser. Now, was this the Sennheiser mic that came with it?
Correct.
Okay, so we talked about the stock mics that come with the wireless system. Now, if I did not want to use that one, I could take this Rode lav right here and put on the end a connector, which will work with the Sennheiser. And now I'm good to go to use a different manufacturer lav. Okay. The only caveat to these adapters is that this particular one does not have a thread on it, but this one does. So if I wanted to go into this Sony pack right here, this Micon 8 is designed for use with the Sony. So I just put that on like so, and then I screw the I screw the lav wire into that. And I'm good to go. Cool. Anything else?
Yeah, we got a couple student questions. Go ahead.
They want to know if the Sony capsule is Omni or Commodore.
That is an amazing question. You want to answer that?
Repeat the question again. Was it Omni or? I feel like this is Omni.
It's Omni.
Yeah.
Most lavs are standard or Omnis. I have, yeah.
Yeah. So this is going to be one of the major exceptions. Is going to be this little guy right here. the Seiken COS11, and this is actually a little cardioid. So it's going to reject a lot of the noise that's not directly in front of it. So if you're off to the side, it's going to do a good job rejecting any of that stuff, which is, and then we were talking about the thickness of these cables. You can compare that cable to even this cable. You can see it's a lot beefier. So that's why a lot of people like this type of microphone. It can take a decent amount of abuse.
Yes, that's true.
Which happens in reality shows and things like that.
Now, while we're on the subject of pickup patterns, if like, let's say you're doing a 2-shot, and let's say Alan and I are, we're doing a 2-shot interview type thing, a cardioid, you'll see this in news or panels or two. If I'm speaking to him, my head's going to be turned to him. So I'm going to place this mic on my left side. So when I'm talking, I'm the microphone's picking me up. But the moment I turn my head to talk to Mr. Baker behind the camera, I've turned away from the mic, and you're going to hear that. You're going to hear a drop in level, and you're also going to hear what we refer to as off-axis coloration. Now, if I turn my head back, now it's going to be full frequency, clear, and fairly full sounding. Now, an Omni, which picks up all around the mic, I don't need to do that. I can put that mic right here.
And it's going to be a nice circle.
Yeah, I can put this microphone right here and talk to Alan, and then turn to talk to Mr. Baker, and you're not going to hear anything. Okay. Now, the caveat to that is the cardioid does a great job of rejecting room ambience and other noises, because it has a pickup pattern where it's only going to pick up here in this area. But Omni microphones, whether they're, not a shotgun, but an Omni microphone, not a shotgun, is going to pick up all around. And reporter microphones are Omni. Okay, they're not always cardioid. So just like we have to know shot types, what else do we need to know, Mr. Baker?
Pickup patterns.
Pickup patterns. Just like we know shot types, we have to know pickup patterns.
So question came up about using it for feature films. So basically addressing that thing, everything we've been talking about can be used for any type of medium, television, film, feature, short.
100%.
And again, when we're talking about jumping up step to step, I always like to say more expensive gear is going to give you more reliability and more options when interacting with other departments. So if you're doing an interview where it's just a one-man band, this type of gear is going to be great. But as soon as I'm a sound mixer in a feature-length film, and I need to give an IFB to a director, I might need to give something to DIT. I might need to have antennas set up because I have to sit so far away from the talent because the crew is just that massive. That's what the more expensive gear is buying you, those options. And again, you can get by with gear like this, not in a feature-length film. I would never use a Go just because of the 2.4 gigahertz. There's too many people around. It's going to break out all the time. But that's what that more expensive gear is getting you, is the option to communicate and interact with the other departments.
Yeah, and it just gives you a more sense of peace and confidence going into a gig, that you have robust gear that you don't have to worry about. And just like sound, the same thing goes for cameras, goes for lenses, goes for tripods. As you grow as filmmakers, it's incumbent upon you to grow your gear and to upgrade your gear. And the more the better gear you have, the more confident you feel, at least on the gear side, no camera or great lens or great is going to make you a better, filmmaker. But going in, like for me, having this gear, going in and doing a feature or a doc, I feel real good. I feel my gear isn't going to let me down.
Getting this gear too, you made the point, excellent point earlier. This is gear you would use if we're doing something maybe like this, really small crew, just doing something really simple. But then once you move into maybe a feature length indie film, we would jump up to the Electro. But this type of gear can still be used as camera hops or as IFBs. So that's the benefit of like jumping up to this level of gear is you don't have to throw this away. This can now become your backup. Like just say something happens to your Electro as a set. Things happen.
Yeah, if something happened on a set and I need my Electro transmitter went down, I had to, throw a wire on an actor, I'd have no qualms about using the Sony.
Yep.
Now I have the older precursor to that, and I used it all the time for comms. I would come off my bag. I would give one to the director. I give one to Script Soup. I would at least try to carry two, because those are the two people who have to hear. And then if you have more, then great. But I use those on the Unbreakable.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what's great about kind of thinking about gear that can, yes, you do move away from it eventually with the bigger stuff, but it can still be in your back pocket and still be useful.
Oh yeah, you'll repurpose it for other things, and it gives you more tools to be able to offer more.
Exactly.
Like if a client calls me and says, we need comm tech or we need comm. Oh, you mean the Sony rig I can use in the opposite direction to provide for comms, but my go-to are Electros.
Yeah.
But those are things you build your rig over the years.
Yeah, that's not something, and you said that point too. Just because I own Electro doesn't mean I know how to use it. It's something that you should build and gain once you're getting that level of production. And we all want you to get to that level, but don't feel like you're not a professional unless you have this thing. That's just not.
Can I ask a question to Mr. Baker?
Sure.
I can? Okay. When you started out, what was your first pro that you would call your first pro camera that if you went out on a gig, you wouldn't be laughed off the set? And what was your first lens? And where are you now? And how many different manufacturer lens sets that you have? So the first question is, what was your first camera and lens?
So it was probably a Sony 3/4 SP was the professional camera. I had
Big thing?
Big thing.
A big thing?
Yes.
I'll come
Okay,
up.
okay. So Randy's coming. No, come on.
Ron,
Okay,
Okay.
so talk to us.
Certainly. So it was probably it was the Sony camera. It was an early beta cam. We got one of the very first beta cams in the country, and it wasn't SP. It was just beta cam, and then we moved up to SP after that.
Now, is that all contained?
It was a
recorder.
The camera was
all?
$45,000, and the lens was $18,000.
But that was this where you
all
work, but your personal, when you really started to go out on your own and be the
Sony Betacam. I bought two Sony Betacams. I think I spent $70,000 for them.
Okay,
with
so
lenses
so
and batteries.
Okay, so that's a pretty hefty investment.
Right.
Then where did you go?
We moved up beta cams and beta SP and then digibeta and then HD cams, and then we started going backwards to reds and that whole mirrorless camera, the DSLRs and the mirrorless, and then up through like
Right.
the Sony.
So you grew, just like we're talking about growing our microphone collection, if you will. We don't just grow lavs. We have multiple shotgun microphones that have different sounds, different characteristics. You know, depending on the location we go into, we'll pick a different microphone because it's going to perform better. Now, as you grew as a DP, did you, like we're talking about with microphones, did you grow a different lens kit for certain types of
Sure,
work
I have.
that you would?
Yeah, I went through the whole series. So every time we got a new camera, we had a whole lens series. So we started with Sony lenses, then we went to, Nikon, then we went to Canon, then we went back to Sony. So I own 60 lenses right now.
Right now,
yeah.
okay, that you will use for different jobs you go out on.
Right. So,
Okay.
yeah.
But do you have your go-to camera and lens that you, when you approach a project, that you start with that first, and then you kind of think about the project and say, maybe I need to use this lens package or an anamorphic package,
Sure.
or that sort of thing?
Yeah, so I try to find out what the job is all about. So one of the problems with owning your own gear is you tend to use that gear on every job. So you have to be flexible enough to know when to rent gear for what the client's needs are, for that job's needs are. So, but I'm partial. I have a FX9, but I'm partial to FX6. I'm probably going to sell my FX9 because I use my FX6 so much, but I have a whole series of primes and zooms for that camera and specialty lenses.
Yeah. So guys, just like Mr. Baker grew his camera collection and his lenses that he applies to, he looks at the scope of the job, the nature of the job, and he does his thing. We do the same thing. There are some jobs where we go out and we just bag it for, depending on what the nature of the job is and the budget. It's just like, Alan, I can't afford to hire you as a boom op where I'm mixing. I can only, it's got to be me. Or we get a narrative feature and I say, okay, we need to do this on a cart, a sound cart. I have so much I have to mix, so many actors I have to wire. So therefore, Alan is going to be my boom op and utility, and together the two of us wire up all the talent, because we look at the scope of the project and we look at the script and we break it down and we determine the logistical aspects of how many wires do we need, how many wireless systems, and all of that. So guys, just don't fret over time. Or don't get wrapped around the axle thinking that you have to have these very expensive lavs and wireless. Allow yourself to grow and learn. And Mr. Baker said a very important thing: rent. Until you really establish yourself to where you're getting the work and it justifies making a purchase, rent. And then you can, from a business standpoint, we can charge that back to our client. But remember, if that camera ain't spinning, you ain't making money. In fact, you're losing money. So don't fret about renting or thinking that, oh, I gotta buy it. Because the moment you lay out that cash, you have it. Now you got to go make it happen.
Mike was just talking today about gas. I'm the king of gas.
Gas?
Yeah, gear acquisition syndrome.
Oh,
Gear acquisition syndrome, remember, is a real thing.
I am so glad I'm through that phase in my life.
I wish I were. But one last.
Wait, we got
One
Jessica.
last question for
Okay.
Ann.
For me.
Yes, for you.
Oh.
Do you still rent gear in your stage of your career?
Do I still rent it?
Occasionally you come across something where you need
I-
to rent anything.
Okay. I'm going to answer that in a way that, let's just say I have resources that are cost effective for me when I need gear. Is that a good way of putting it?
I
wanna add one
But
thing on that.
I did do a big, recently I did do a big, huge training that I did rent. This is very interesting on that subject. I rented 4 Sony A7 IIIs with a 24-70 GM zoom package, 4 of them for this training. And when I got done with the training, it was so successful that the training group directors asked me, can you put together a price for these cameras? We think we might want to buy them. But I suggested to him, let's do this training a few more times and rent before we decide that we're going to go buy. So renting is a good thing.
Yep.
And certainly there's some technology that you can buy once and hold it for 10 years, like the 411 wireless systems, or a Sennheiser MKH 416 microphone. The technology isn't going to change that. I'm not going to go sell a microphone that works. However, cameras, that's a whole other jam.
You're an ass.
You know, the problem or the challenge, I don't want to say problem, I want to say challenge. You have to have the gas disease, would you call it that?
Yeah.
Ailment. Okay.
Yes, it is.
So-
True
so,
syndrome, yes.
And in order for, and this is so hard, and I know because I've been there in my life with workstations and software and all of this kind of stuff. But when you're talking hardware, you have to stay so ahead of the curve so you know when to put your gear up for sale so you get the greatest resale return on that gear before it gets to the point where it's just like, why am I going to buy your used gear when I can go buy something new? And that's always been a challenge. It always will be a challenge. In fact, it's even harder now. Wouldn't you agree with that? Yeah, it's so the thing of it is, like, when you get into a group of audio guys or camera guys and you're working with them a lot, and you develop relationships and trust and friendships and this and that, those are your go-to people first to say, you know, hey, I'm doing a job. Do you still have this particular lens or that camera body or that microphone? Alan and I, over the years, I borrowed his harness, or I borrowed, some tentacle sinks from him.
Yep.
But at some point, guys, look, when you borrow something, if you are going to be charging that back to the client, give that money to your buddy. Don't pocket that. You know what I mean? And then it's just like, hey, you need this gear again? I don't know. What do you think about that, Randy?
One last thing I have to say. Let me go.
Okay, get on camera.
On camera.
Okay.
So
get on
I
camera.
started as an audio guy, but I sucked at it, so I went into camera. But
said it, not us.
But here's the thing, I was always taught that audio is easy until there's a problem, and then audio is very, very hard. So that's what my big takeaway is. And so having good gear, the whole key is try not to have as many problems as you can, and having good gear helps you do that.
Yep.
Yeah.
100%.
I want to
And-
see
and
these three
tape-
react to something here since you said that. Okay, I started with, I'm older than you, I think, because I started with three-quarter inch SP, a video. But Andy, I owned a Nagra 4.
You mean a boat anchor?
Yeah, boat anchor.
Yeah.
Yes, reel-to-reel audio.
Okay.
I wanted to see his reaction.
That's well before my time.
You weren't even born.
I
when-
said we didn't
you-
have to go there.
you weren't even born when they discontinued that one.
I knew I'd get you with it, saying it.
Yeah, my first job, video cameras weren't around. You know, it was a film camera.
Oh,
So-
yeah. So,
Aeroflex 16S. That was the first film camera I ever touched.
That's a good camera.
wow. Anything else? you
Any
wanna-
other
Gentlemen,
questions?
It is 8:30, and that was about the time we were scheduled for
Yeah.
today. So I think we're good with everything. So
Did we get a fair amount of Q&A?
I think we did. We got some good stuff. We're not going to go into a couple questions on brands, but they basically, I don't think we need to. We've gone into a
No.
few things on there, but I would say if anyone has any questions on anything, oh, Professor Baker has
One
something.
last thing. I mean,
Yeah.
there's a couple websites that you should go to if you want to learn about audio. Gotham,
Yep.
Mhm.
out of New York, TI, Topham, and True Audio.
True Audio.
Yeah. And then you can go to the Electro sites, and you can go to the Sennheiser sites, and you can go to the Sony sites. But if you go to Gotham and True,
Yeah.
those two sites.
Is
will
Location
wealth of
Sound
information.
Still
In LA? Yeah.
LA Location
Yeah.
Sound
Yeah,
out in
location
LA.
sound still exists, I think.
Yep.
But one thing I want to add on to your rental thing is I have to thank Professor Baker for something because was not aware that there was a lens rental house literally almost in my backyard in a small warehouse that was able to rent to me anamorphic lenses.
And they're not that
cameras.
expensive,
They're not
really.
that expensive. So don't be afraid to search. And you may find you have a local rental house somewhere that does rent out these things very reasonably and sometimes sells used.
Yep. And, you know, if you're renting from them a lot, if this is a small business, you can get a relationship with them too. And
Right.
you can get some
It's,
benefits from that.
I have one in my backyard in Winter Garden, Florida's Lens Pal.
That's about.
And that's who I rented all the cameras and lenses from, and boom poles and stuff, and they were fantastic.
Go to my vault in week 1. There's a list of 12 different lens rental companies throughout the United States.
That was
And they all-
Professor
and-
Baker's plug for the month.
And most of them ship.
Yes, yes. This one ships. There's 2 locations for it. And like I said, this I discovered by networking with a peer. Think about this stuff when you're getting out there. Start networking with your peers, even in your classes.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Thanks for joining us.
Good night, everyone. And we'll see you next time for part 2 of the audio series, how to improve your production audio through wireless. Don't forget DC Buzz live from the Hive audio series. Good night.